Welcome to the Probate Podcast, where we talk about all the things you didn't know you need to know about probate. My name is Sherry Lund, and I'm so glad that you're here. I want you to understand the process and to know what to expect because it's going to make things easier and it's going to save you money. And I'm here to show you how. Hi there. Welcome to the Probate Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Sherry Lund. I'm so glad that you're here. You know, I started this podcast last year in hopes to educate people and provide a community's resource to cover a topic that's just not talked about very much. Probate is massive and scary, and most people don't know about it until they drop into it. And then I had questions come up about what to do in the middle of it. Today's episode is going to be different from our conversations about probate and end-of-life planning. I have Beth Crocker as my guest today. Beth's mom has dementia, and she lives currently in a memory care home. And today's episode is very personal to Beth and I. And we're going to talk about what it's like to be a daughter with mom who lives thousands of miles away and how her and her family are juggling all of that. You're going to want to grab your pen and paper. Beth, I imagine my listeners have a journal that they write their notes down into so that they can come back and refer back to that some other time. But before Beth and I start talking and before I really introduce her, Beth and I have known each other for over 50 years. Beth and I, we have talked a lot, but regarding this particular episode, this is a sensitive topic. And this is one family's way of handling it and managing it. And this is Beth's perspective on that. And I'm just very aware that this is a sensitive topic for Beth and her family. And for the people that are listening from the same perspective that Beth might be sitting in today. And so this is one family's way of handling it. And the resources that they have and the way that they've found to manage this situation may be different from yours. And your challenges may be different from theirs. Beth and I are both very aware of that. And we're extra cautious as we go into this episode because we are sensitive to all of that as we have this conversation. But that aside, I want to introduce you to Beth because she's awesome. And she's got some great things to say, and she's so generous in spending her time today. Beth is a mom. She's a retired theater teacher, high school theater teacher, and she says all the things that come with that. She's also an excellent photographer. She's a crafter. She's a quilter. She loves to bake. She bakes amazing things, and she does herbal studies. And she currently has 11 rescued cats. They're not all indoors, but 11 is still 11. Beth and her husband were raised in Texas, and they're raising their son here as well. The rest of her family, her siblings and parents, live about 2,500 miles away, and they're trying to figure out how to manage mom and dad's care. Both of her parents are still alive in their 90s, and they're separated physically and mentally because of her mom's dementia. Beth and her siblings have found ways to work together despite the distance, and they do a great job of caring for their parents. So, this is a funny seat that we sit in because as we're aging too, we talk about these things, but we're also like, okay, what does this mean for us? And so Beth and I have also talked about that. Beth, thank you again for joining me today. I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh gosh, thanks for asking me. It's always self-healing when you can share your experience because even if majority of people it wouldn't apply to, there's going to be those few, or maybe in the majority of people, everybody can pick one or two little things that, might ignite an inspiration in them. And then that returns into helping us know we're on the right track. So I think this exchanging is part of the whole process for progress.
I couldn't agree more. And, the other thing I wanted to say was that, we're in uncharted territory. Both of my parents are gone. So I've done that part of my journey. You guys are trying to figure it out. And some days you may think we've got it, we're going good, we got it good. And then something else comes along. And so you're just trying to figure it out. You've done, so you're a couple of years in with mom in memory care and moving forward with dad at home, still trying to figure those things out. Before we get into that, I want to talk about you as a person. Let's just set the foundation of if you and I were hanging out at the quilt show and you seem like a really nice person, God, who are you? Tell me about you as a person. What do you like?
It's interesting because when you talk about me as a person, the average person, that's just an individual entity, but I'm one of two because I'm an identical twin. And so, like, my husband used to comment when I would say things, I'd say we. I always identified in the plural. And he'd be like, "Who's this we? Who else is with you?" It's habit. Sorry. I'm 60 years old and I still have this habit. I am enjoying retirement, but staying busy. And my son's a senior. And he's active in theater, which is what I taught. So it's a lot of fun. And so I'm looking at two different perspectives at the same time. I'm looking at, because I'm a late life parent, at 60, I still have a kid in high school. All my friends are grandparents already. But that does segue into my parents, in their 90s, luckily still alive. Luckily, all four siblings are still alive to share that job of role reversal. And so I'm just navigating the waters each day, taking their lead because I'm not present there, and then living my life at the same time. I'm trying to balance it so that part with my parents doesn't block me experiencing these precious years as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. We grew up in North Houston together.
Yes.
And I actually worked for your mom for a little bit. Your mom, I love your mama. Then they moved to Washington outside of Seattle. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you and what your expectations were before they moved and then after they moved? What was that transition like?
I had fair warning, I guess you could say, because they snowbirded 6 months there, 6 months here for quite a while till her dementia was just getting on. And her dementia was so slow. No one's heard of it ever being as slow as it is. The first sign I noticed was like 15 years ago. And she's still hanging on and functioning, just can't remember. She lives on Fantasyland. So the moves would trigger onsets of behavior issues. They decided, where are we going to settle full time, Texas or Washington? And it was a no-brainer. You have 3 siblings up there and it's just you down here. And at the time I was still working, but I knew I would be retiring soon. Bottom line is, my mom really preferred Washington. My dad prefers Texas, though. But my dad acquiesced because she was the one they needed to worry about. So they settled up there. Now, keep in mind, we were all raised here and tight family, but my parents raised us to go find our lives and not be bound to staying at home. But I chose to stay home in Texas, where I, at that time when I was young, thought my parents would always be. I figured family gatherings would always be in Texas. When they made that final move and they sold their Texas property, my Christmases and my birthday, which is in the wintertime, all those winter events, my son's school activities they used to attend, suddenly that stopped. And I did go through really bad depression about going from family gatherings to my husband, my son, and me, really depressing. I chose to stay home, and the nest left. So I'm like, where do I land? But luckily, I'm a bird and I can fly. I can
There
fly
you go.
whenever, land
Yeah.
in the bee nest. But yeah, that was a traumatizing thing for me, because I never imagined I'd be the one not near home.
Yes, there's nothing like that support at home to make that easier for you, because it is hard. Thinking about Carol's memory lapse, you said that it's been like 15 years coming. It was slow at first, and then it
She was
picked up.
actually able to hide it. She has always been gifted on I'm going to say the word, psychic level. She's always been there. And there are some fun stories that Dad's only admitted to us after she went into her memory care facility. It wasn't there to stop him because she kept it to herself. She didn't talk about it. I think mind over matter. She'd always had this paranoia in her, and it may have been her intuition, knowing this was going to be her demise in the first place. There's no family history of it. And she had one uncle, I think, who had Alzheimer's as opposed to dementia, which is much more aggressive and quicker and all that. She just went into this paranoia mode in her young adulthood, and it grew and grew. I think ultimately it's possible she manifested this dementia, which would explain why it came on so slowly, like record-breaking slow. For 15 years, she could hide it. She could lie about it. She could deny it. As more obvious as it became, the more fearful she got. She started becoming argumentative, more controlling. She was already a controlling woman. And she would get very bossy and aggressive. And the common signs that you would see in both dementia and Alzheimer's. But as we understand it, dementia happens slower, but it also includes hallucinations. Alzheimer's does not. Dementia includes extreme hallucinations. And those were really bad, especially in the middle of the night for my dad to help her deal with. Heartbreaking. But in that first decade, she could hide it. She finally admitted to me in her last year before we put her in the memory care facility in a clear moment that she had. She said, Beth, I do know what's happening, but if I admit it to anyone, y'all are going to just put me in a facility and abandon me. And her biggest fear from day one was abandonment. And I assured her otherwise, that would not be the case. And she said, the problem is in 15 minutes, I won't remember. That's not the case. She even knew that she wouldn't remember it. She understood the core of her disease was that all the comfort we could give her is irrelevant because it'll be gone in 15 minutes.
Oh.
And I believed and I reassured her that it's still in there subconsciously somewhere. There's going to be something that clicks and gives you comfort. And we just kept feeding her. And sure enough, when we decided it was time and we put her in this facility we chose, she actually regressed into a healthier standard of living because, as she told my brother on one clear moment visit, I do know where I am and I don't blame you. And besides, I see you more now than I did when I was living at home. We had made the conscious decision not to make her feel abandoned, to make her feel reassured. And my 3 siblings living there were going twice a week each for that first 6 months. That's 6 days out of 7. She was getting a family visit. And that was way more than she ever got at home. And my dad said she might be better off there because she's a social butterfly and she has no one here at the farm to visit with or talk with. She just sits and stares out the window. She was declining faster at home. Now, that's not going to be the case for most people. We found a good facility. We have a lot of people to go visit her. But my answer to people who are alone in this would be build yourself a circle of friends who know your parents well, who are present, who could help with visitation. It doesn't have to be the children because she doesn't even remember who we are most of the time anymore. If anybody just comes and singles her out and keeps her company a while, she is happy and it makes her day. It pulls her out of those dark moments sometimes we find her in and it lifts her up. So it really doesn't even have to, I think ideally, as we grow and evolve as humanity into longer living lives, we need to be more aware of new systems caring for our elderly. One of those things would be full-on companies you can hire like babysitters who would go visit your family for you. Because your Alzheimer and dementia people with no memory, they don't know who you are. They don't know this is a stranger. And they will in time bond with that person. And even if in their head they think they're talking to their child or their spouse or their sibling, my mom swears every day she's talking on the phone to her mother who died before I was born. And given my mother's psychic abilities, we joke and say she may very well be talking to her brother. We don't know, but yeah.
So when you guys made the decision, okay, now it's time. You didn't actually you didn't find a place immediately. You guys took your time. But what was that like when your family came to the decision?
So my dad was in denial himself, and he kept trying to go status quo, the two of them living together, and she was dropping weight like crazy and getting more belligerent towards him. Meanwhile, it was affecting his health.
Sure.
She flat out refused to go see any doctors because she was paranoid that they would not diagnose her and her fears would begin. So she refused to go see any doctors. My dad would go to doctors for his own care. And he managed to get her to go along with him. And his doctor would be in on the game to where he's really indiscreetly examining her through questions and things. So he was able to give us a lot more confirmation and solidify what we knew was happening. At that point, my dad was getting little mini strokes. It was affecting him on a level that it was going to kill him. Her behavior towards him, her treatment of him was just killing him. And the doctor finally told my dad, you need to, deal with this or she will be gone in 2 months. She's not eating. She's starving. because you're not realizing that she's not eating. Dad thought she was eating when she really wasn't. So then he got more on the ball and he called us all together as a family meeting without her. And he said, I gave her my word I would never put her in a facility. And I cannot go back on my word, but I don't know what to do. And we just stepped up. We said, Dad, you can throw us under the bus. You can say we overruled you, because we're going to overrule you when it's time. You just tell us when it's time, when you've had enough. So during that next year, my siblings up there, specifically 2 of them, did all the research. They walked through, they interviewed, they checked out all the facilities within a reasonable distance, looking at different facilities. They found one near one of the siblings, actually, like 10 minutes from her home. So it was functional. It was 45 minutes from my dad and my other 2 siblings. And they were like, okay, they found a place. We talked about it. We looked at the pros and cons. We looked at cost. We looked at insurance coverage and all that. And one brother manages all their finances. He's the numbers guy. And we settled on a location, but we had to be on a waiting list. So then they started notifying us when availabilities would come up and we'd get a window of opportunity to make that move. I think maybe we decided not yet and passed on the first window. And then another opening came up and we let Dad know. And he thought about it and he evaluated, his recent days with Mom at home and with them and his own health. And he made that call and he said, okay, I'm ready. And it was frightening. None of us knew at that point. Mom was a very belligerent person and we didn't know what to do. And my dad, he couldn't even be a part of it, because he couldn't have her blaming him or accusing him. And he was hell bent on staying true to his word that he would never abandon her. And he has not abandoned her. So he went out for lunch or something, out to grocery shop or whatever. And then 2 of the siblings came and got her and said, we're taking you to lunch, Mom. And they just flat out lied. And they took her to this facility and walked her in. It was one sibling in the end who ended up actually being able to have the strength that the rest of us probably didn't. And she just took her in, and she and our other sister had set up Mom's room. We were able to get her a private room, which is a big deal for my mom. She's very English and very modest. And even in her dementia, that's something that will never leave her. She needed a private room, and we were blessed enough to be able to handle that. So they decorated it. I mean, they shopped at the Goodwills and, they got a little rug, nice furniture, decorated the walls. They even put up a big whiteboard, erase board. So whenever we visited, we could write messages. And when she's feeling lost and alone, she could read them and know that we visit her. And it's right there in her face. And that's probably been the single greatest thing we've done to help her feel at home in her room. We gave a big story. We told her this is a facility that houses rentals for people who have guests all the time. And we said, this is Marie and Mark, one of my sister and her husband, the one who lives there. This is their space. And you're going to stay here while Dad is out working on the oil rigs. And when he gets back, he'll pick you up and y'all will go back home. So for the first 2 weeks, they said, don't come visit her. Let her get settled in. Half of us were like, yeah, half of us thought that was insanely inhumane and mean. But it was their rule. We did it. We went and got to go visit her after 2 weeks, and she seemed fine. She seemed like she was making friends. She didn't feel like any time had passed, as far as it seemed to me and the reports I got. I may be remembering in a rose-covered glasses kind of way, but it worked. And we started in with the stories, but we had to get the whole staff in on it. We had to get all the staff in it. They couldn't say things like you're in a memory care facility. They had to say, your husband will be here after he's done with his job. And everything was vague. But she bought it because she liked her cozy room. She liked having people to talk to. Half the days, she thought she owned the place and was checking and caring for everyone all day long. Half the days, she thought she was a guest and it was a nice place. She thought she was in England most of the time, still does most of the time, thinks she's in England, and waiting for Dad to come get her and take her home. And she's adjusting. She went from having to walk on a walker to not walking with any support, walking freely. Her swollen knees stopped swelling up because, like my dad said, social butterfly. She spent all day walking those halls checking on people, just checking on people. And that interaction gave her purpose. And I will say this, everybody else who was brought there, they all say their kids dump them and abandon them, and they cry over it. And who knows, maybe mom does the same when we're not there. Maybe all of them had visitation regularly. They just didn't remember it. But I'm thinking not, because the guest book never had those sign-ins for visitors like ours, like mom's. And you'd see them be dropped off and then just decline in months. And mom, in 2 years, has stayed status quo. She has not really declined, except in little details that keep reminding us to be prepared, the day will come, you know? But I really do credit 99% of it with my siblings' regular visits. They have gone to 1 day a week each. So she gets 3 visits a week. And that works. And if they're on vacation, then she'll go a week without a visit sometimes. I've gone up after it's been a week without a visit, and I've seen her looking like all the other zombies there. But as soon as I'm there, she wakes up. And I figured it's about 4 days before she gives up on us and starts declining. But now I don't even think that happens. I think she's just accepted her role, and that's where she is. And they can go on vacations and not visit her for a week or 2, and we find her. What now we're monitoring is the staff's job. That's a big thing. If we don't go 2 or 3 times a week, we're going to find her room in a total mess with nasty personal things around, no toilet paper type stuff. We have to go maintain that, even though we pay a lot of money for this facility to do those things. There's no amount of gold in the world that can help people that are understaffed and overworked. You just got to step up and be there, or have someone that you can hire to go in and check those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes all the difference in the world. Their comfort level, like I said, she doesn't know who we are. I've buried 2 children, and she'll show me their pictures and say, they died. And I'm like, yeah, I know, they're my daughters. Oh, I thought they were my daughter's daughters. I am your daughter, Mom. Oh, but it's okay, because I appreciate that. So I feel like my mom, she left a long time ago, but there's a sweet lady there that reminds me of my mom.
Thank you, Beth.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm emotional.
You just encapsulated the whole thing right there. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that Carol has y'all caring for her that way. And was everybody in agreement that this was a good thing to do with mom?
Yes, not just for mom, but for dad. Because one thing here is, financially speaking, if anything happens to dad, the funding is gone. And so while we do have a backup plan, it will definitely significantly change her lifestyle at that facility. They grandfather claused her in. So when her financial support stops, she doesn't have to leave. But they will be giving her a shared room. She won't have a private room anymore. And that'll be significant to her. We don't know. We were very afraid of her. We didn't think she would last a year once we put her in the place. And it's been 2. Who knows? Maybe when that happens and she has to start sharing a room, it'll be okay after all. Our fears will be for naught, but that's for another day. We just take things one day at a time, and we prepare without really losing our time now that we have. We don't give too much time. We just know that we've got a backup plan.
Right.
Because dad is now saying, I've come to the conclusion that you all have to prepare for her to outlive me. So we need to have a plan, and it's true. And we just, seeing her in this facility has allowed us to breathe a little and think about the next step.
Yeah. So we could have a listener, right? Whose parent is in, and hopefully we do. I expect us to. Aging parent needs to move to an assisted care community, and they don't know where to start. But what could you say in how you have stayed connected with your parents and your value of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the value that you have with your family, your parents and your siblings, and how you honor that within yourself, your own value and how you're choosing to carry that out. It's a sacrifice, even if your husband works for the airlines, you're choosing to go up there often and visit, and you don't have to
I'm
do that.
away from my son. He's a senior in high school and I'm active. And when I do this, when I leave home, I'm leaving my job as a mom and a wife with their support, you
Sure.
know. But being one who values family and heritage, it's important. Like I say, I'm late life parent. My son is 17. Um, I make him. He doesn't get a choice. We give my son a lot of freedoms to decide what he wants and, in his routines, but once a year, he doesn't get a choice. But luckily, I don't have to drag him kicking and screaming up there. I let him pick when will work best with his schedule. And I even let him bring friends this last time, which was fun for him. But I get him up there because he is our only child in the sense of a living child. And all of his cousins are adults with their own children. That's how late life he is. He really has no family. And even down here in Texas, he's got a few cousins that live out of town. He's got an uncle that lives on our street. And that uncle is really like the only family that he's really got that's interacting with him. So his family is almost non-existent. It's his dad and his mom. That's it. And then his uncle across the street. So it's important to me that I maintain the legacy of my parents through him. And I get him up there and he loves his uncles and aunts up there. He loves cooking with Steve. He loves going out on the adventures with David. He likes to go check out Marie's latest cool artwork or whatever, and Auntie Anne, she's just a bunch of wonderful flower and joy that comes around and makes him feel like, oh, I've got that cool aunt that, it's important that he also witness us caring for our parents. My parents have 5 kids to divide this burden to. My son's going to have to carry that whole burden on his shoulders by himself. And he'll be significantly younger when it happens because we are older. We as a human race are not providing for our elderly like we need to be doing at this point. There need to be systems in place. And I'm not saying the government has to get involved. There can be private entities that create just like these facilities we're putting our parents in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right on that. One of the things I do now is help people find places for their parents to go as senior placement agent. And it is hard because they want to find the best place. The best place may not, I don't know that there is a best place. I've thought about this a lot, because mom or dad's not in their best place and physically, emotionally, mentally. The best place is the place that will care for them and provide the care that they need. So what would you say to the adult daughter who has concerns? Maybe she's feeling guilty. Maybe she's not sure if this is the right time, or, maybe she is like your son is going to be. Maybe she's the only one that has to make this decision, or somebody has to make the decision. Not all siblings are in agreement, but if
I would say it seems more convenient when you're the only one that has to make decisions because you don't have to consult with anyone. But I would say that's not a good thing. You need other perspectives. People think differently. I think anyone who's alone, who has this burden on their shoulders, number one, I would say get 2 or 3 good, trustworthy, lifelong friends that are willing to step up and help you. Listen to your decisions, look at your finances, be there when you can't, make recommendations that you don't have to take. But I think you're shortchanging your parents if you think you can do this all by yourself.
That's a really good suggestion. And also to remind you that you're not feeling guilty. You're not doing the wrong thing. You're not doing the selfish thing.
Somebody just to keep you going.
Yeah. Do you prepare yourself mentally somehow for what you're going to possibly see, or are y'all communicating enough during the visits so that how do you handle your own personal psyche before you step into your mom's room?
I follow their lead, and we actually, modern technology, people can say a lot of negative things about it, people our age and older especially, but the benefit is there are two things. One is for those people who don't have my advantage of being able to travel long distance to check on their parents, they can do what we are doing right now, video chatting. They can do FaceTime. They can do any one of the multiple options for video chatting because you can contact the facility and the staff member will get on and set it up and go to your parent and sit there with them while they're chatting with you. So you could actually call the facility and say, do you have an available staff member so I can go say hi to my mom? And they will do that. But the other thing is texting. As a family, we have our family thread. And we have our family thread, and it's all of us, including my dad and the oldest grandchild, my oldest sister's daughter, who happens to be a nurse because she helps out a lot with the medical aspects. Her knowledge just gives us advice and things, but she doesn't necessarily get involved in his daily medical routines with my dad or my mom. But we go to her when we have questions, and she looks into it and helps us out that way. So we actually even have a granddaughter in the thread. But every visit is followed up with a mom report. And that is to all of us, and it reports all the details. And then if there's anything we need to discuss, and mostly it's like, hey, she's been out of toilet paper now, both my last two visits. I took toilet paper up there on my last visit. I took 3 rolls, we figure these things out together in these dialogues. And so we do that. And we all report, I talked to mom today. We sat with her, granola bars and sparkling water, and it really makes a difference. Just knowing how to go with food in hand, gifts in hand, because she won't know who we are, but she'll know we're coming with goodies, and that makes her happy.
Yeah. It's also so neat because your family gets to participate in those visits, even if they're not actually there.
Yes.
And yeah.
And we talk about it. We analyze, what did we see today? Good day. She was in a good mood. She had no problem letting us leave. Other times she kept trying to say she needed to drive us home. I had to sneak out. I had to get the staff to help distract her, stuff like that. We have learned the games, and we work with the staff directly on helping them when we need to, them helping us with our games when we need to. But for the most part, we have no clue what's happening when we're not there. Her blessing is that she forgets she had a bad day. 15 minutes after an argument with someone at the facility, she'll forget it. We still obsess over our bad days, months later, days later, whatever. We can't let go. She can. It lets go for her. So when we see her in such a state that might make us upset, we just remind ourselves, it's like Houston weather. It's going to change in 10 minutes, and we go often enough to know that she's not losing weight. She doesn't have bed sores. My twin sister, Marie, she somehow it's ended up in her lap to do all the laundry. They do laundry there, but nothing ever comes back. Other people's things come back. You can write her name big in red, black Sharpie inside everything, on the bed sheets, on the little picture frames is sitting. My mother, she thinks the whole place is hers. We will bring her picture frames of us, and we'll go visit her the next time, and all her frames are missing. And then we'll notice they're all up and down the hallways on end tables and in the lobby. And she thinks, she's an interior decorator. That was her career. So she's always decorating the whole facility with her personal items. And we do this. So we get her things. We don't care if they get lost. We go to Goodwill and get her clothes. We bring her new slippers all the time because we'll go visit her and she'll have one slipper on and some guy's gigantic, huge slipper on the other foot. It's just crazy. And you can't control that. You just got to go with the flow and just keep her comfortable. So we do that. And that's what makes the difference. If she were uncomfortable, if she were hurting, that would be a bad thing. But the staff, some of them are nice. Some of them are rude. Some of them just don't care. They're burnt out. The nice people do their best. They're usually the new ones, the new hires. They get burnt out pretty quickly. And you just got to learn not to go Karen on them. You just got to learn to save your Karen moments for when it's really important. We've asked for this 3 or 4 times and no one's done it, and go to the supervisors, and then it gets taken care of. But if you don't visit, you can't do that. And if you can't visit, you try and find someone who can, because it makes it all better. It makes it doable, and it allows you to live your life and still make sure that your parent is getting the best care that they can,
In the last few minutes here that we have, is there anything for the adult daughter that you would want to say from your heart to hers if she's wondering what to do, how to do, when to do, all the things?
I would say the most important things are, number one, you cannot do it alone. You must have a support system. However you manage that, if you hire people, if you utilize your friendships, but you must have a support system. You cannot do it alone. It will cheat you of your life, and your parents don't want that. Your parents want you to enjoy your life and have a good life. They don't want to be that burden. So don't try to be strong. Ask for help or find it. The other thing is understand the finances. I'm not going to lie. I have no clue about the finances with my parents, but that's because I have a brother who does and manages it, and we trust him. Now, if something happened to him, Lord help us all. And I have one of my sisters is always wanting to keep up with that. She's, can you tell us? Can you explain what you're managing? Because we need to know in case, for some reason you can't do it. And that's true. That's good. I'd say always have a backup on anything, but don't try to do it yourself ever. The whole journey is not a journey for one. And understand the finances, because you can so easily get screwed over, and nobody even knows doing it intentionally. Sometimes you just don't realize there's better options, And if you understand your options, we are always reevaluating our options in mom's care to decide if we need to start looking at another facility, if we're not happy with this one, or if she changes, or what, pros and cons. I think it's imperative that you understand the finances, even if you don't have very many finances.
Well, Beth, this has been easier than I thought. I was nervous about this episode because, I love you guys and I love Carol and I wanted to do y'all well, but I also appreciate your unique perspective and your willingness to share what you've learned in this process with other people who are steps behind you and just getting started on their own journey. And so I appreciate you taking the time and your willingness to pull the curtain back a little bit and let us peek into what that might be like for you and others.
I absolutely appreciate what you are doing, because like I said, we have to start stepping up and doing this as a humanity, as a human race. As we start to live longer, we have to educate each other on what we're facing and how to handle it so that we're prepared. And, businesses like yours, people outreach systems like yours, they're rare, hard to find. It's got to be so difficult for you to get this going, because we still live in a world that doesn't see its value. And in no time at all, within this generation we're raising right now, it's going to be essential.
Yeah, I had so many people say, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Or why doesn't anybody talk about this? And that's when the educator in me said, we've got to start doing something to get some relevant content out there.
Yeah, because little tiny things like, you may pick a facility that's perfect, and over time that facility will change managers, change owners, even change staff, and you're in a whole new place without your mom or dad even moving or leaving there, and you're like, wait, all new rules, you got to start over all over again. And just knowing, just being educated, just being prepared, it makes all the difference in the world. So those little surprises and, things life throws at you in the middle of it all, don't throw you off guard, that you're prepared for.
Right. So you can be empowered to make some good decisions and have the confidence to do that.
Yeah. You've inspired me so much. Nick and I are like, I'm 60, he's 65. And we're like, dang, we got to get our stuff together. We're not as prepared as we should be. Why are we not using all of this knowledge that's coming at us and actually acting on it? Why are we still sitting back and living our lives in our routines? You have to say, today's the day. I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone and go take care of this. I'm going to go get that will done. I'm going to go make sure that I have a place in mind. These are things people don't think about. And even when they're told to a million times,
Mhm.
they tend to put it off because who wants to deal with that?
Yeah.
But it's a necessity. And you have like literally lit that fire under me. And
Aw.
we're doing this. We got to get this done. Because again, I don't want this all to be on my son all by
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah. My goal is to inspire 50 people this year to have a will or a trust or something. And so when you get that figured out, let me
Yeah.
know. Add your name to the list because I'm fun to see that list growing. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining me, Beth. Thank you for joining me, listeners. Beth and I both want you to know that you're not in this alone, that if you don't have a team of people around you already to help you, please go out and find one. That's what this podcast is about. I have resources that I'm happy to share with you. That list is growing all the time. But please don't try to figure it out. It's too much to figure out all on your own. And there's a lot at stake. There's your health, there's your parents' health or your spouse's health. Yeah, please don't be alone. That's a sad, depressing place to be. Anyway, thanks for joining us. We hope that you'll come back next time. Please subscribe to the episodes, to the YouTube channel so that you can catch the next episode. We come out on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Central Time. So I hope to see you again. Take good care.
Thank you.
That's all I have for now. New episodes of the Probate Podcast will come out on Thursdays, and I'll share the links of where you can find me in the show notes below. I'm looking forward to us connecting. See you next time, and remember, you matter.